The goal to rule the world. A device that made it possible. And all it took was a simple late-night heist. But one unpredicted event caused a domino effect of desperation, deceit, and fraud. This is a Pokémon cold case.
Professor Samuel Oak, the friendly Pokémon researcher with a dedicated passion for documenting and caring for all Pokémon species alike. But due to his old age, he can no longer explore the world like he used to. So he equips a young Red and Blue with their first Pokémon and an empty Pokédex to finish his lifelong work. And that's the story. Or so we've been told. But after doing some research of our own, we've come to conclude that there was originally a darker, more nefarious story that was so grim, it never made it to the final draft. But with all things buried to time, there are bound to be clues that will bring it back to the surface. So what are these clues? Well, let's get into it. It all started during a stream, where after Red, my co-tuber, not the game character, accidentally did a Giovanni impression while speaking as Oak.
Oak Gaming.
I had brought up skin theory, a theory made popular by YouTuber Doug Willever that describes the idea that some fish in SpongeBob, especially in the earlier seasons, wear fake bodysuits to look like other fish or creatures. Red mistook what I meant as Giovanni is actually wearing the skin of Oak on his body. A viewer on our stream, Team Rocket Agent Silver, had brought up the card Imposter Oak and mentioned the Cut Oak fight. It was taken as a joke at first, but slowly the evidence started racking up. Take it away, Red.
Now, if you don't know, in the files of the game, there was a cut fight with Professor Oak. Fairly common knowledge these days, but was removed for no given reason. While at face value, it may be reasonable to believe Professor Oak could have just been a final battle for shock value, but his removal may mean there was more there.
Taking the other comment into consideration, the card Imposter Oak clearly shows a mischievous person dressed and styled to look similar to Oak, but with a scar stitched up on his left eye. Looking further into this led to the 24th volume of the Pokemon Adventures manga titled Calling Kadabra. In this volume, Red heads to Professor Oak's lab as his first stop after coming back into town. He finds Oak standing in his lab, caped by darkness. After a few short words from Red, Oak strikes out at Red and uses Psybeam. It's then revealed that this was actually Sabrina's Kadabra in disguise and not Oak at all. Now clearly this would be case in point that Imposter Oak was just inspired by this chapter of the manga and not at all the Oak from the video game, right? Hit him, Red.
Well, first let's compare the two. Imposter Oak from the manga does seem to match the description of TCG Oak, but the glaring difference is the scar on his left eye. Albeit a small detail, it implies a deeper lore that goes beyond this one instance of psychic illusion. A physical person who could receive damage and can remain scarred as a result. Next, let's look at the dates both were released. The TCG version of Imposter Oak releases alongside the original base set of cards in October 1996, just a few months after the release of the original Pokemon Red. Now, Pokemon Adventure Volume 2 was released in Japan on December 16th, 1997, a whole year after the fact. These dates would, in my opinion, switch the common theory of manga inspiring the card to card inspiring the manga, as the unused storyline needed an explanation, so the manga picked up the slack. But the original card, being so close to the game's release, tells the card could have been in production during the making of the game, leading to original concepts being used, although it never made it to the final product. So with the possible connection of adventures being cut, this brings us to compare the game and the TCG to find if there are any leftover clues that can prove the cut storyline of Imposter Oak and validate the card's original purpose.
Starting the game already raises some huge red flags for our precious Pokemon professor, who upon meeting us, asks not only our name, but the name of his own grandson?
Right, so your name is Red. Of course, I knew that. This is my grandson. He's been your rival since you've been babies. What was his name now? Was it Blue? That's right. I remember now. His name is Blue, of course. Of course it was Blue.
Now you may assume he's just a senile old man, but he immediately preceded that question with the fact that he recalls that the rivalry we had with Blue has been going on since childhood, but he can't even remember our names? Moving forward from that, if you want to chalk that up to purely game mechanics, we go downstairs after waking up to talk to our mother, who tells us Professor Oak is waiting for us today at the lab. We head to his lab to find no one but our rival waiting there. After growing restless, we head to the grass, only to get stopped by our man of the hour, telling us to stop and that we need a Pokemon.
Hey, wait, don't go out. It's unsafe. Wild Pokemon live in tall grass. You need your own Pokemon for your own protection. I know. Here, come with me.
He suddenly exclaims that he has an idea, and brings us back to the lab to give us a Pokemon, which we were supposed to do anyway. We literally had an appointment today, dude. Not only that, but Blue calls him out on his suddenly forgetful attitude, only for Oak to totally forget that he asked Blue to be there too.
Here we are. Gramps, I'm fed up with waiting. Blue, let me think. Oh, yeah, that's right. I told you to come. Just wait. Oh, yes, of course. You're supposed to be here. My grandson. I know you. Here, Red. There are 3 Pokemon here. The Pokemon are held inside these Pokeballs. When I was young, I was a serious Pokemon trainer. But now in my old age, I have only these 3 left. You can have 1. Go on, choose.
He then gives us a choice of 3 Pokemon, stating it's all he has left, despite the fact that he is shown to have a Nidoran beforehand. He then offers us a Pokédex, the culmination of his lifelong work, a device to document any Pokemon you captured, but both are empty. You'd imagine a professor who has been documenting and researching Pokemon his entire life would have a massive collection of entries already in there, or even just the 4 Pokemon he's at least known to have at the time of giving them to us. But nonetheless, he offers us an empty device and sends us on our way to fulfill his dream.
But let's not move on too quickly and discuss the Pokédex. The functionality of the Dex is that once you capture a Pokemon, it instantly logs it in as if the data was lying there dormant. But how is this possible? Could the Dex not be empty at all, but hiding all of its info, waiting to be rediscovered? And could this imposter know about this, and be using Red and Blue to accomplish this goal for them? And could the final battle have been them fighting for their completed Pokédex? If that's the case, why and who is this imposter? For that answer, look no further than the second introduction to Imposter Oak in the trading card game, the booster titled Team Rocket, or Rocket Gang in Japan. The card in question is Imposter Oak's Revenge, which depicts our mystery impersonator with accompanying Pokemon Gengar and Koffing. Judging by the type of Pokemon and the booster it's a part of, it's clear there's a connection to Team Rocket there.
The title of the card is also a subject of interest. Imposter Oak's Revenge? What revenge could he possibly be enacting? And looking at these other cards, could there be a narrative going on?
I think there is. And to explain this to us, I've hired Detective Pikachu for $2 and a watered down coffee. Take it away, Pikachu.
With pleasure. Professor Oak was at his lab the night before the meeting with Red and Blue, finishing up preparations and uploading all his data onto his latest device, the Pokédex. His lifelong work all inserted into a handheld device. Truly his greatest achievement. But at the same time, Team Rocket was plotting a sneak attack to go into the night and infiltrate Oak's lab to steal the latest innovation this region had to offer. They made their way to the lab and used their poison-type Pokemon to circulate the fumes into the building, knocking anyone in its path unconscious and leaving an opening, sending in the gas.
Drowsy!
Coughing, use poison gas. But Oak's lab was built with all kinds of Pokemon in mind. The procedures to ventilate the dangerous volume of gas were kicked into gear, and in a moment, the threat was eliminated. But no matter, the boss would have his way. A mission this important he couldn't risk sending mere goons to take care of. He had to handle this himself. He enters the lab, his grunts following at a distance. A vast variety of Pokémon standing behind him, a sight that would intimidate anyone. But Oak remained composed.
What are you doing here? My lab is closed. You'll need to come back in the morning.
Don't play dumb. You know why we're here.
Oak remained quiet. What was going on in his head? A mystery.
We've had an inside source tell us you invented a device that would be very beneficial to our cause. Is that true?
What I've created is a device to bring a better understanding of Pokémon. A means to bring peace and unity. Something made for good. Could never benefit scum like you.
My methods are beyond your understanding. What I do is also for the better tomorrow. Now hand it over.
Fine. Have it your way.
Oak stares at the floor, then glances at the desk containing his 2 Pokédexes, both being prepared. He goes over, but in a moment of quick thinking, presses a combination of keys that trigger Dexter to announce,
Deleting data.
In a fit of shock, Giovanni summons his Persian and he lunges at Oak, clawing a massive scar into his forehead. Before he could figure out his next move, the robotic assistant announced the final message.
Complete.
Well played, Oak.
What are we gonna do now, boss?
Bring him back to the lab. This may not be a waste of time after all.
Yes, sir, Geodude. Returning back to the base, Oak's body was prepared. Having his insides removed and skin cleansed, Gengar, who followed close behind the path of death, stood by Giovanni, who was wearing a new Oak skin suit, with a sewn-up scar and a strangely purple shadow.
Oak Gaming.
When the time had come, he opened his doors and said,
Welcome to the world of Pokemon.
So that's the story of 2 men with dreams and what they do to accomplish it.
An after-the-fact note is that in Generation 2, there was actually a scrapped Imposter Oak early in the game's development. And along with that, a 3rd Imposter Oak card was produced for that generation's booster pack, Neo Destiny. It's unknown what use this Imposter Oak's invention would have had, as it was cut very early in the game. But it is worth noting, if Imposter Oak was your last fight of Gen 1, he could have well continued his deeds into the next generation.
Ah, it's me, Professor Oak. If you don't want to end up like me, be sure to subscribe and like this video, and share it with all your fellow Pokemon trainers.
Ah, Oak. Oh, well, since you're here, maybe we could do some questioning.
Oh, sorry, I'm ascending. I have to go now.
Damn. But as far as cases go, we cracked open a cold one. Did we solve it? Well, we'll never truly know. But keep it on ice, because where there's a mystery, there's history to be found. This was a Pokemon Cold Case.